good evening from Thousand Oaks, and welcome to the season premiere of the Coach Mcvay Show with Super Bowl champion DeMarco Farr. I am JB Long. The Rams back from a Week 1 victory in Charlotte, 30-27 over Carolina, and with that, Sean McVay now 3-0 in season openers. Coach, thank you for being with us. Welcome to a new season. Congratulations on the victory.
I appreciate it. It's good to be on here, guys. I'm wondering how much we had to pay those players for the promo before the show.
Well, thankfully, nothing this year. That was last year.
We got to get some new lines.
Nothing's changed in their programming rotation. Wire-to-wire victory, one that I'm sure had some easily identifiable things you'd like to correct in every phase.
Yep.
But nonetheless, to go on the road in Week 1, which is always a wild card, and never trail is an accomplishment.
It is. And you know what I was as pleased with as anything, JB, is the fact that all three phases, special teams, offense, defense, in some form or fashion, face some adversity, and it's all about the response. We talk about that all the time. I love the way that our team handled it, whether it was defense needing to pick up offense picking up defense, Greg making some big kicks from a special team standpoint. So it was the epitome of a team win, and it's the epitome of being able to learn from, a great game for us, but definitely some things that we can improve on, and we've got to improve on against the great New Orleans Saints teams coming to town.
I think I've heard this word 1,000 times since last night going into today. Rust. How do you define rust in football?
You know better than me, DeMarco. I think, playing live football and what we decided to do, which, we wanted to get to the first game healthy and ready to go. That meant that a lot of guys, their first live reps, in a lot of instances, that was for the first time in a few months. I think, from quarterbacks seeing a live rush, running backs being able to get tackled, actually, defensive players taking guys to the ground. There's a lot of things that you just can't mimic and emulate until you play real live tackle football. And there was some rust. I think that's always part of the early season thing, no matter what. And, usually if you look at a standard approach to the preseason, you end up accumulating a game's worth of snaps for those guys that are the starters anyways. So typically you see some of those things in that first couple weeks, and like anything else, we expect to get better as the season progresses.
What a tough draw, just defensively, not to jump too far ahead. I mean, that offense and that guy McCaffrey, that's tough when you have 4 weeks to face them game one. That's got to be hard.
It was, and I thought, credit to the Panthers and Coach Turner. I thought they did some really good stuff. Christian McCaffrey is one of the most complete players in this league, and you could see the problems that he poses for an opposing defense, and then obviously in addition to what Cam can do with his arm, with his legs, that's a real challenge. And then you look at what we got this week, arguably one of the most complete backs in Alvin Kamara. So two great challenges for us specifically from that running back position out of the gate early for our defense.
You already want to know in terms of the injury report. You go to Carolina in better shape in terms of your available players. And in terms of the roster coming home, it seems like only Eric Weddle is of concern for Week 2.
He is. And really, I think we feel pretty good about it, JB. You got to go through the standard operating procedures with the concussion protocol and all those things. But he's feeling good. He was lively. I think he wanted to get back in the game yesterday. But as long as you're asymptomatic and then you go through all the things as far as just the procedures, the test, we feel optimistic. But we respectfully will go through this and be smart with how Eric's handled this week.
I think all the way back to training camp in Irvine. Remember noticing how many different players on defense were wearing the communications and training in that role for all the various contingencies that can happen. And in the first half of game one, it does happen. Did you feel like you were prepared for such an occasion?
I think we were, because Corey had the mic last year, so it was a pretty seamless transition. But one of the things that makes Eric such an elite player is his ability to communicate and to be able to have a big picture understanding. You talk about a true coach on the field with his ownership of what's going on with all 11 on defense, understanding coverage contours, blitzes, and how we want to be aligned structurally based on what the offense presents. He's an impressive player. I thought our players did a nice job handling a big loss when we did lose him and seamlessly, kind of continuing on with the flow of the game. Corey did a great job, and then it provided an opportunity for Taylor Rapp and Marquis Christian to get a lot of snaps.
I get the feeling like Weddle doesn't wait for you to go to him for advice. He comes to you with something.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he keeps you accountable as a coach, DeMarco, and that's what you love. I remember meeting with him, when he became available, and you just spend a little bit of time, and selfishly you think, man, I'd love to work with this guy because he's going to make you better as a coach. You learn from him the way that he sees the game. He really understands how to do a lot of things to mess up, the way a quarterback sees it. You can see the rapport that he and Rivers had going back to early on in his career, and then even when we got a chance to practice against those guys a couple times, two veterans that have been playing at such a high level, and they're above the neck approaches is one of the things that separates them. I enjoyed talking to Philip about Eric, and just some of their kind of cat and mouse game that they would play with each other, similar to what Jared and Eric did, all through training camp in the off season.
The Coach McVay Show is presented by In-N-Out. That's what a hamburger is all about. With DeMarco Farr, JB Long, and the head coach of your Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay, who improved to a league best 14-3 on the road since Sean McVay arrived, plus a win in London, plus a win in New Orleans, the NFC Championship game. I don't want to gloss over how difficult it is to have sustained success away from home in this league. And it's something that your group is going to have to embrace and do well again this year as they travel the most miles in the NFL.
All right, we love that. And you know what? Our guys, it's a real credit to really our players' ability to just lock in and focus on the task at hand. I think really you can't understate the importance of Reggie Scott, Ted Rath, those guys being able to really educate, myself and our players on, all right, what's the most seamless way to handle what's really a 10 o'clock kickoff in our head, on a 2-day trip, to get all up on the circadian rhythm and some of these things that I never thought I would know about that I do now. So, we've had these experiences, and I think most importantly, it's a credit to our players and our coaches' ability to be ready to go. And ultimately, the players are the ones executing on game day, and for them to be up, ready to go from the jump, you can't say enough about them.
You lost me at circadian.
Hey, yeah. I'm gone. That's how I feel, man. I don't know what the heck's going on. I just follow what people tell me to do.
But any challenge. It seems like you guys can relish any sort of moment, no matter where you play. You love the challenge of going on the road and being successful on the road.
Yeah, our group has really handled it really well. I mean, when you talk about that record, it kind of speaks for itself. But it's really just about locking in and just being in the present and being able to just handle whatever challenges that we have. And I think you talk about it, it's really let's just handle whatever is asked of us, and we're not going to make any excuses whether we have to travel or not. It's still about playing football, executing, and doing the little things that help separate you to ultimately come away with the win at the end of the day as a team.
And it was hot as tight underwear out there. Yeah.
How hot is tight underwear?
Very tight.
I've never heard that one before.
So tight, I needed to just tight.
There you
hot.
go.
I mean, it was warm. I mean, do you think that affected the game?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime that you're playing that many snaps, it's one thing even if you're playing in the preseason, and especially for us, that's where there was some benefit, maybe even just from a mental approach of getting to go out to Houston. We got a good workout in, but to truly mimic and emulate 70 snaps on each side of the ball, the tempo, because, I thought Carolina's offense did a good job in some 2-minute situations. They went hurry up a little bit, and then our offense as well. So to be able to play that fast and within the framework of just the given play clock, but when you're going snap after snap, that is exhausting. And you're seeing a lot of really good football players that, early on in the season, there was definitely some effects of that weather for sure.
How many IVs?
That's a good question. You have to ask Reggie Scott, but I know that we were missing some key players and some important moments that I was wondering how long these IVs take these guys to get them back on the field.
Yeah, maybe an angle situation where Malcolm Brown was nowhere to be found.
That is very true. You noticed that one. Malcolm was nowhere to be found. Brandon Cooks had to take a little bit of a breather.
Right.
It must have been, Malcolm's veins must not have been working with us because he was gone forever. Either that or he had to use the bathroom. I don't know which one it was.
One of the two, right.
In terms of film, we appreciate how much work you get out of these joint sessions with the Chargers, with the Raiders, your scrimmages internally. But in terms of teaching off of film, is there anything like week one? And is that why the old adage goes that the team makes the biggest jump from week one to week two?
That's the hope. There's nothing that you can truly mimic and emulate, other than real game situations. And, I said it yesterday, but repetition is the mother of learning. And to be able to get live reps against different defensive structures, different offensive structures, some of the new things that maybe we've tested out, and you get a chance to learn as a coach as well, because it's all about us providing clarity for our players and being able to get those reps on tape. We learn just as much as our players do. We continue to try to emphasize the ownership from them, and that's what's most important. And I think the types of players that we do have on our team, really in all three phases, that's the goal, and that's what these games provide an opportunity to continue to do.
All right, just getting warmed up on the season premiere of the Coach McVay Show. Still to come, the game-winning touchdown toss between a couple of players who received contract extensions from the Rams before heading to Carolina. And how about the week for Corey Littleton? All he did defensively to contribute to an opening win over the Carolina Panthers. Plus, your questions in a segment we call Audibles, back for 2019. And back after this for segment number 2 with the head coach of your Rams, Sean McVay, on ESPN LA 710. Play clock at 8 as Goff takes a shotgun snap, looking left all the way. He throws to the goal line. He's got Tyler Higbee. Touchdown, LA! Goff and Higbee. 'With contract. extensions this week connect for the score. With 6:37 to go, it's 29-20 LA. And that would prove to be the game winner for the Los Angeles Rams, the 2019 Week 1 opener over Carolina with DeMarco Farr. I'm JB Long, and Sean McVay is with us from Cal Lutheran in Thousand Oaks. Glad you are too on this Monday night. We're keeping an eye on Monday Night Football. Your next two opponents, Coach, are both playing Monday Night Football in these coming weeks. The Saints here and then Cleveland in New York next week. So thanks for giving us some of your divided attention.
Yeah,
let's just
there
say.
You go.
We don't expect all of it.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here, always after a win, too.
All right, let's dig into the offense a little bit. And why don't we start with that touchdown toss? I mean, some beautiful symmetry with the way the week went behind the scenes here, getting the contracts done so that Jared Goff and Higbee are a part of your intermediate and hopefully long-term future, and then they ultimately connect on the game-winning score.
They did. It was a big-time play, and that was exactly why we ended up calling that play, because they both got extensions this week. No, I'm kidding. It worked out great, and it was a big situation that we needed to have on a second down, and Jared did a good job. He progressed past his primary, ended up sitting on his back foot. Higbee tight turn, basically a little stick route in the end zone. And those are the things that happen quickly down in the red zone. Everything happens a little bit faster, so your timing, spacing, and rhythm has to be on point. And both those guys did a great job making an excellent play that ended up being the difference.
Now, behind the scenes, I just want to point out, we talked about this a little bit tangentially already, but we see Malcolm Brown jogging out of the tunnel in a situation where Todd Gurley has gotten you down the field, gotten to that situation. Darrell Henderson makes his debut, runs for no gain, and we ask out loud, would Sean consider taking a timeout here to maybe get Todd a breather and in, or maybe Malcolm would be ready? And before you know it, that touchdown happened.
Yeah, no, it was a good job by Jared, kind of getting everything coordinated and making sure that Darrell understood exactly what to do in those situations. And we have confidence in those guys. Certainly Todd and Malcolm were the ones carrying the load yesterday, but in an instance where Darrell had to go in, there wasn't any hesitation on our part due to the confidence we have in him.
I thought Malcolm, like we said, is a hammer. I mean, what a blessing for you. I mean, how blessed are you to have Todd Gurley, top end back, and then to back him up, Malcolm Brown, who won't turn down a challenge from anybody in the other colored jersey.
He had some tough runs yesterday, DeMarco. I mean, you talk about 11 carries for a hard-earned 53 yards, breaking tackles, good ball security, especially so many of those down in the tight red area where he's able to punch in 2 touchdowns and then get us tighter. The sudden change where he had the 2 back-to-back 5-yard carries was outstanding. Good blocking up front, but, he did a really nice job. And really what people forget is, CJ came on and did such a good job, when Todd was a little bit banged up at the end of the year. But Malcolm really, as a guy that was spelling Todd early on, did such a great job. And we were really bummed to lose him in the Detroit game last year. So he's a guy that's really, when he's given his opportunities, has demonstrated that he's more than capable. And I think yesterday was another chance to prove that. And he did a great job, but it wasn't a surprise to any of us.
The second one was the walk-in touchdown?
The second one.
That disappoints me. You should be running over people, It shouldn't be
great blocking up front. They played everybody tight inside their gaps, and he read it out the right way. Big Wit secured the edge, and he walked in.
He blocked the world. Come on now.
There you go. That's right.
You talk about losing him in that Detroit game. You almost lost him to Detroit this offseason. When they give him that offer sheet, how easy was that a decision for this organization to say, not a chance, we want him back?
Yeah, it was pretty easy for us just because of what he's meant to us. And, what else you don't talk about is what an intricate part of special teams he's played over the last couple years. But he's gotten better and better. I think, he truly has developed himself into a complete back that can really do everything that we ask of him. And to see, to have, like you mentioned, to have a great player like Todd, who's been an all-pro player the last couple years, and then to be able to have somebody step in like Malcolm, who we think is a starting caliber back, is a real blessing for our group.
So the narrative that's been there all off season, and I think we get that first look at it in week 1, and everyone says, okay, well, that's what Sean McVay and the Rams mean by load management for Todd Gurley or whatever program it is that he's on.
Yeah.
Is there some semblance of truth there, or is it more nuance in terms of feeling out how a game goes and how your backs match it?
That's what it is. More than anything, it was just the rhythm of the game, JB. To say that we wanted to come out of that with those guys basically getting close to the same amount of carries is not the case at all. And really, it's our job as coaches to feel the flow of the game. And if you said in an ideal situation, did you envision not getting that many rushing opportunities off in the first half? I would have said probably not. You always like to try to have some sort of semblance of balance, but it's most important is our job as an offensive coaching staff and offensive players is to move the football and score points however we do that. But it was more a product of just kind of the flow of the game. It happened to be Malcolm's drive in that situation that we decided on, and he ended up making it count.
Damn, Cooper Kupp is good.
He is good.
Yeah, good to have him back.
It is, and really the stats don't do him service for what you look at Malcolm's touchdown. Watch Cooper Kupp cutting off Brian Burns on the backside, first-round defensive end out of Florida State. I mean, he does some stuff that, obviously shows up in the stat sheet, but just the crunch time plays that he makes, and some of those crucial known passing situations, but with or without the ball, what he adds to our receiver group, to our team, and it was great to get him going a little bit yesterday.
And you get him going on the very first play. Maybe we can talk about this approach in general with going some 10 personnel and just starting with 8 passes through the air. What made you want to begin a new season, and specifically this matchup with the Panthers, that way?
Yeah, it was just the decision that we felt like going into the game, we wanted to be able to try to get into a rhythm and get some completions off the bat. Started out in some empty formations and went quick right off the bat. And then, it was a good mix of 11 and 10 personnel, like you said. And, that was just the approach going into the game against Carolina. And we'll see, it's always exciting to kind of see what we think is the best way to activate, whether it be personnel groups or certain concepts going into New Orleans this week.
So when you get into the half, I don't know if someone passes you a box score or whatever, maybe you've already kind of recognized, hey, Brandon Cooks is too good to not be involved in what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Where does that dawn on you? We got to start there with back-to-back, seemingly the same play to get him going.
Yeah, it's something that you always want to try to get your playmakers involved, and that's something that I got to do a better job of, really, as a whole, finding a way to, distribute the touches, between our backs, all of our receivers, our tight ends. We got a lot of good playmakers in one ball, but, that's a great challenge. Those are what we call positive problems. So it was something that we felt like we wanted to get him going a little bit, get him a couple opportunities, and really he had that was the only plus 25-yard, pass that we had all day, and then he ended up following it up in a very, really the same concept like you mentioned, JB, on a 15-yard play. But both of those against a good corner and Dante Jackson that demonstrated why he's one of the better players, at that cornerback spot. But Brandon was able to win, get inside, and Jared delivered 2 good balls to him.
Maybe I'm crazy. The O-line and Jared, I like it when it's tough, when they have some rough patches and they have to fight their way through. I mean, a perfect passer rating, how do you get better and learn from that? But I like it when you make mistakes and have to come back and fix it and come back out the next drive and make something happen.
No question. And that's part of the game. I mean, that's inevitable that you're going to face some adversity, and the people that have the ability to respond are usually the ones that are successful over time, because if you can't handle it, then this probably isn't cut out for you. And that's one of Jared's best traits. I thought our offensive line really as a whole was outstanding throughout the day. I mean, you talk about we had the 1 sack, but that was more we got flushed and on the first drive. But, the line protected really well against a formidable front. They created some great space, to rush for 166 yards. So, when you look at them, the offensive line got a game ball, and I thought, really Coach Cromer did a great job making some in-game adjustments. But those 2 young linemen, for their first start on the road in a hostile environment against a team that's, notoriously been really good on defense, I think Coach Rivera does a great job. I think that's a real confidence booster for Brian Allen and Joe Noteboom to go into, what we know is going to be a great challenge this week.
All right, we'll take a break here on the Coach McVay Show. Come back and talk some defense, including Corey Littleton's big day. That's as we continue from Thousand Oaks with the head coach of your Los Angeles Rams on ESPN LA 710. Snap back from the 36. 4-man rush from the Rams. He throws. It's intercepted at the 45. Corey Littleton down the left sideline to the 10. Shouldered out by Cam Newton. Littleton started the game with a forced fumble and a recovery. Now he's got an interception. All right, we continue with Sean McVay, DeMarco Farr, and J.B. Long. And where might the Rams be without those 3 takeaways yesterday? Corey Littleton responsible for a couple, including that second-half interception. He picked up right where he left off for you, Coach. I mean, just has an unbelievable knack for finding the ball, whether it's in the air or on the ground.
Yeah, no, he does. And he's really been that for the last couple years. And I thought, especially the first drive of the game to even force that fumble where, they hit a play and he ends up kind of getting DJ Moore stood up on the sidelines. And you talk about, we call it a jab tackle. And it was a perfect example of some of the stuff you see him working with Joe Barry, in some of their individual drills. And then the practice performance translating to game reality. Makes a big pick that we just heard right there where he's dropping as a hook player in one of our 3-deep structures. And, he was all over the place in the run game. He was everywhere, and that's why he got a game ball.
I hope he gets player of the week.
He did,
Hell of a stat line.
Game ball, player of the week, however you want to look at it, that's what that means.
That's tremendous. I mean, but for your first time out defensively, I mean, okay, McCaffrey aside, you got the win. That's the most important thing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's what you want to build off of.
Absolutely. And for Corey to play the way that he did with, being at such an important spot on our defense, is a real credit to him. To be able to account for 2 of our turnovers, to make a bunch of different tackles. Coach Barry had him tagged for, I want to say, about 15 tackles. If Coach Barry's taking the stats, we're in good shape, man.
No doubt. And you might want to block Dante Fowler. I'm just saying.
Those were the two. You mentioned it. Those are the 2 guys that got the game balls from defense. And really, when you look at what Dante meant, he had about 8 hurries on the quarterback. He gets 2 sacks, on a couple great rushes, and I thought he consistently applied pressure. One of the plays that, didn't go unappreciated by us, but kind of sometimes can get, lost in the shuffle is when we got the penalty on Marquis Christian, he ended up drawing a holding call on that rush, which was a big offsetting penalty, making him replay the down, and, it would have put him in some favorable position, but, another big-time play by Dante, and he consistently showed up, and he's got some swag on his celebration, too, where he's showing some nice flexibility in his hamstrings.
What is that celebration?
I don't know. You have to ask him.
Dusting his shoes?
And he looks smooth doing it. I don't know that me and you could do that one.
I know
I couldn't.
I know the defensive tackle to my left will not disagree with this, but there has to be some way to account statistically for what Aaron Donald does to forklift a left guard and a left tackle clean out of the way so that on that stunt Dante can get there untouched.
You mentioned it. And in a lot of instances that doesn't go. I don't know what stat, an assist or whatever, but he certainly did a great job getting vertical movement right there, getting the guard and tackle on really different levels, and that enabled Dante to come underneath clean on the little TE game, and it was awesome by Aaron, and I know Dante appreciates it.
No doubt. Look, there was a time when I saw 3 guys touch Aaron, the center, the guard, and the tackle.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of attention. So if you're getting single block, you should win.
That's the goal, and when you've got a player like Aaron, he dictates and elicits a lot of different responses and some protection schemes that people tend to get pretty creative, but I think that's flattering to Aaron, and you can see why they do that.
In terms of tackling issues, I think every team goes through this week 1 early in the season, but how much do you attribute to McCaffrey just being elite? Being hot, being sweaty, being tired, being not necessarily used to tackling in 6 months, and then how much just flat out needs to be fixed week to week with the Saints coming next?
I think it's a combination of both. I thought we tackled pretty well early on in the game. Really, as the game wore on, I didn't necessarily think the missed tackles. I thought it was a combination of some great runs by Christian McCaffrey, and then, you get a little bit tired. You talked about the heat. That humidity is a different element, and when you're going fast, really the majority of our missed tackles came in that 2-minute drive, where they ended up scoring a touchdown there, and I think it was a combination of some things that we can clean up. Let's continue to get, our game legs underneath us, or however, just getting into game shape. And then, there's an element of, you got to say, shoot, that guy's a pretty good player that we were trying to tackle there.
No doubt. Sebastian Joseph Day got his first start.
He did. Yeah, he did a good job. It was, his first game action, first game that he's up and active, and got involved and did some good things from the nose spot. And we're looking to see him improve, going into next week.
He's the head coach of the Rams, Sean McVay, with DeMarco Farr. I'm JB Long. This is the season debut of the Coach McVay Show, live from Thousand Oaks. Touch on special teams a little bit here as well. I mean, because there were some miscues, it almost makes you appreciate all the more how irregular it is to not come away, forget even, but with a win in that phase of the game.
Yeah, it really is, and it's something that we certainly don't take for granted. I think John Fossil and Matt Daniels do an outstanding job, and the core that we've had, when you look at Johnny, Greg, and Jake, very important. We've got some younger players that we're still getting acclimated to playing some very important roles for us, specifically in our punt phase and, some of the return elements, but those are things that we can't wait to go to work, fix some of those things that we didn't do at a high level, and then see if it translates to a good performance going into week 2.
Some of those rookies you mentioned real quick, Rapp, Scott, Patrick, Reeder, Edwards, all making their NFL debuts on special teams, and then a whole bunch more who have been around this franchise for a while but are essentially seeing live action for the first time in that context. Go ahead.
I just love watching Rapp play. It looks like he's not a rookie. You know what I mean? Way, his demeanor. But do you simulate that in practice? Like, we got a punt blocked, we're on the goal line, we got to stop them. Do you simulate that stuff?
We try to simulate some sudden changes. You get into a little bit more of a rhythm once you get into the normal flow of a game week where you're going through your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday preparation. But those are things that you always try to make sure that you're creating stressful moments in those practice settings with the sudden changes that can occur within, a normal game like that. So to answer your question, I would say a lot of those come up a little bit more often in some training camp settings, but that's definitely something that we've looked into, and we talked about it today as a staff, actually.
All right, coming up next on the Coach McVay Show, what books has Sean read over the summer, and what would he recommend related to leadership? We'll let you think about that during this commercial break. And who wore it best, Cam Newton's hat or Jared Goff's shirt post-game from Carolina? That's ahead in Audibles, contributions from our audience on ESPN LA 710. All right, your contributions from social media straight to the head coach as we continue with the Coach McVay Show. DeMarco Farr and J.B. Long. And before summer vacation, what little of it you had is too far in the rearview mirror. I know you're an avid reader when you can be. Brian asked, what books did you read and what would you recommend, especially related to leadership?
So I got from Tomago Collins a great recommendation, a book called $1 Trillion Coach. It's about Bill Campbell, who he was the head coach at the University of Columbia and then transitioned into working, with Apple, Google, and he really worked as an advisor to a lot of these companies. He's since passed away, but it's basically about how he led transition from being a football coach, where then he ended up being a coach kind of in the business world, specific to some of these tech companies and things like that, and how important, what an important role he played in the development of some of these companies as he transitioned later on. So $1 trillion coach, because he was, a coach for a lot of these multi-billion dollar companies. But it really goes back to the emotional intelligence, the ability to connect with people. Foundationally, everything starts with building and developing relationships, and then how you can have honest dialogue with people. But if you've at least got that foundation of a relationship, it's much better served to be able to, enable yourself to communicate information that isn't always easy to communicate, as long as people know that you're coming from a place of love. And, it was a great book. I enjoyed it.
Can I tell you, Bill Campbell was my grade school flag football coach?
Is that right? They mentioned that he was so when was this?
Oh, I don't want to give away dates, but when I was in elementary school, Jim Campbell, his son, was my flag football teammate.
That is smart. So did you read the book?
I haven't. It's in my queue now, though, thanks to you.
It's
$1
a
trillion
good book.
coach.
Yeah, $1 trillion coach. He sounds like a heck of a guy, and I think there was some authenticity to him. I think there was some toughness, but most importantly, you talk about a guy that loved people and was invested in helping people grow. That's what it sounds like. And, I think in a lot of instances, it's a great representation on what real leadership looks like. And in a lot of instances, hopefully, the way that people that have been with him would describe him, that's what you want to, hopefully be described as a leader.
Do you like being a leader? Do you like being the guy out in front? Yeah.
You know what? I don't necessarily know if it's being out in front. I look at it more than anything as being blessed to have a platform to hopefully influence and affect people in a positive way. I think sometimes, it's one of those deals where I've heard this said before. You want to be real. You can have bad moments, but never bad days. I think there's a level of responsibility that comes with being out in front, but that's something that you certainly cherish, and it's a blessing for me to say that it doesn't get tiring and things like that. Wouldn't be totally honest, but to say that I don't love it and enjoy the challenge of it is absolutely the truth.
All right, all $1 trillion coaches have to make tough decisions in real time. You were faced with plenty of them yesterday in Carolina.
I wish I was a $1 trillion coach. If I was a $1 trillion coach, I wouldn't be doing this show right now.
Keep winning.
But then what would Cooper Kupp listen to?
That's right. Yeah, then who would have their favorite? Yeah, exactly.
Laura asked your reasoning behind calling the 2 timeouts at the end of the half, trying to take Carolina out before the break, knowing you were going to get the third quarter kick.
Yeah, more than anything, confidence in our ability to get a stop and see if we could get a chance to try to steal some points at the end of the half. So obviously that backfired. Credit to Carolina, but in hindsight, you always want to learn from it. But the thought process there was our defense had been playing really well. You kind of go back and forth when it got to the 3rd down and 5 if you want to use that second one, because they were at 2nd and 17, and then they ended up hitting the trap for a 12-yard play, which got them to 3rd and 5. And I was kind of in between, but gut instincts, you felt like, all right, I feel confident we're going to be able to get off the grass, and wanted to see if we could get an opportunity. But clearly that wasn't the best decision in hindsight, but that was the reason for it.
Brent and Frank both curious about Greg Gaines' status, what went into having him inactive against Christian McCaffrey and the Panthers, and then knowing that Kamara is next. Is there going to be a similar thought this week ahead?
You never know. The inactives, it's always a tough decision, especially when you got to figure out, all right, which 7 guys when you're a healthy team. We just decided to go with, those 5 defensive linemen, up, and I think it was more of a credit to what those guys have done. When you look at Tanzel Denzel Smart and Morgan Fox behind our starting three, and Aaron, Brock, and Sebastian. So wasn't anything that Greg hasn't done. That certainly doesn't mean that he doesn't have a chance to be up and active this week. It's really more predicated on, all right, which personnel groupings, what's the game plan, what do we think the best way to defend against the Saints will be.
Any thought on the defensive line there, DeMarco?
I was just going back to that right before half. Had you got the ball back, had you got the stop, how much time do you think you would have had? 45 seconds maybe?
Yeah,
shots?
Yeah, and I think really it depends on where do you get it, and then that dictates, what your approach is, because we did get the ball coming out of the half. But it was more than anything, it was let's give ourselves a chance to at least make a decision on how we want to approach it based on the confidence, the way our defense had played. Because really, you look at it, that drive ended up representing the first points of the half for Carolina. So our defense was playing really well.
All right, here's the one we've all been waiting for. Sergey with the creativity here. If Cam Newton's hat and headgear got into a fight with Jared Goff's shirt, who do you think Jimmy Buffett would be rooting for? And also, is Jared's shirt a sneak preview at next year's uniforms?
I have no idea how to answer that. I'm not sure. I didn't see Jared's shirt, but I'm sure it looked good. Cam is also known to be pretty swaggy, so I'm not sure what Jimmy Buffett would say, but I think you got two quarterbacks that probably both, looked good and weren't afraid to take some chances.
Yeah. Jared went with kind of like the black Hawaiian button-down, short-sleeve
really?
button-down. Yeah.
Jimmy
What'd
Buffett style. Yeah.
I am no one's fashion critic. I will be the first to say that Jared, especially with that contract extension, can wear whatever he wants.
Look good on him. Right.
Did you like it, DeMarco?
It looked good on him.
Would you ever wear it?
No. No.
Forced to choose Jared or Cam. Jared.
I'll go with Jared.
Takes the post-game podium.
I don't know what the thing with Cam and the scarf around his head. Did you see it?
I did not.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, trust me.
If I did, I wouldn't say I did, so I don't have to talk about it.
Back to your comfort zone, football, and the Saints, and our final stop on this Coach McVay Show, live from Thousand Oaks with DeMarco Farr. JB Long. So glad you're with us on a Monday night on ESPN LA 710. And as we watch Alvin Kamara and the Saints play into the fourth quarter against the Houston Texans on Monday Night Football, reminded of all three trips we took to the Superdome last year and what a home field advantage it is in the Big Easy for the Saints. And spinning it ahead to this weekend with the newly renovated Coliseum, we hope you'll join us there. Sean, what would it mean if Rams fans can kind of turn the tide on that rivalry and provide some noise of their own?
Yeah, it'd be great, and really that's what we've gotten the last couple years. Very appreciative of it, and looking forward to hopefully continuing on with the the last time we were there was Dallas in the divisional round, and what an atmosphere that was, and really can't wait to see what we have in store for the Saints and everybody come Sunday, and I know that the fans will turn out, and it's much appreciated from us.
Another game, or can you call it a rivalry? Since you played so much.
I think this is a great football team that we're playing. To say a rivalry, every single game is so important to us week in and week out, and this represents our second game, DeMarco, and it's against a team that, they were the one seed in the NFC last year. Great football team, really no weaknesses in any one of their main three phases, and we certainly got to be ready to go and play a great game to be able to win.
I know we're distracting you a ton here tonight and making you answer our silly questions, but impressions so far, since it is the rare occasion where you're watching your next opponent over our shoulder?
They look really good. You see physical defense, you see playmakers on offense. Obviously, Drew Brees, first ballot Hall of Famer, and then you look at the versatility from an Alvin Kamara, and you see why Mike Thomas is, one of the best receivers in this league, and I think Coach Payton does an outstanding job leading the way. They got problem, type of situations that they can present on special teams, so they're one of the best teams in this league over the last handful of years for a reason, and that's why we got to be ready to go.
They got to play you too.
We're very confident, but we're respectful, and we know that for us to be able to come away and accomplish our goal of getting to 2-0, we're going to have to play really good football, and we're going to have to improve on some of the things that we didn't do as a team last week, and that's what's exciting, and that's what you love so much about this game.
Where do you come down in terms of the motivation and how it plays into an NFL Sunday? Is there such a thing as payback or wanting to get something right from their side? And how does your group feel about welcoming the Saints after all that transpired last January?
Yeah, we look at it as, you take it one day at a time, and you got to do certain things to be able to execute at a high level to win football games. Motivation. The motivation is to play as well as you can for your teammates, for everybody else, and ultimately it's about us, doing things together as a team, playing to the best of our ability, and hopefully having a great week of preparation so that it can lead to these guys going into the game with a quieted mind, and then let's just go let it all hang out.
I'm looking at Todd's numbers. I guess this means we can stop talking about a healthy Todd, right?
Yes, I think so. I think he looked pretty healthy. He looked pretty explosive, and I thought, down the stretch, to be able to close out the game, DeMarco, with those two tough runs. He had some really physical runs running through some arm tackles, and you see the explosion and the burst once he gets on the second and third level, and to have 14 for 97 is pretty good.
Coach Mcvay Show, presented by In-N-Out. In-N-Out, that's what a hamburger is all about. With Sean, with DeMarco, I'm JB. Where do you fall on the pass interference rule that came out of your last meeting with the Saints? I know you, like so many coaches, thoroughly vetted it to the extent that you could with your challenge flags in the preseason. Do you feel like you have a firm grasp of where we are as a league and how we treat that?
We do, and most importantly, it's really about let's avoid the clear and obvious and the egregious penalties. And, for us, we don't shy away from the fact that the situation that ended up helping our team or being a positive play for our team is really what was kind of the intricate part, and really the play that ended up really kind of leading to this rule change, if you will. But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, what all 32 teams want is consistency in the way that things are being officiated. We want clarity in terms of how it's going to be called, and that's all you can really ask for. And I think we've gotten that. I think the league office and Al Riveron have done a nice job really through this first week, and hopefully that'll continue on as the season progresses.
Thinking back to that NFC Championship game, I spoke with Tyler Higbee earlier today, and with the contract extension, it was a nice reminder of how you view and utilize your tight ends within this building, even if they're not going at the top of fantasy draft boards, in the previous month. Those two in particular in that game, you wouldn't have advanced to the Super Bowl without them.
No doubt. And really those guys continued to become more and more important. And what I wouldn't even say more and more important. They got a little bit more involved on the stat sheet, I guess, is a better way of articulating that. But they're very, very important to us. Tyler had a great game yesterday, had some big catches, but he also did a great job, without the ball in his hands, whether that's competing in the run game, doing some things protection-wise. Gerald Everett, in a lot of instances, did the same. I mean, you look at the 3rd down and 1 that Todd had a great run on. Watch the way those two collapse the edge to enable that ball to bounce out to the side. Gerald had a big 3rd down catch where he kind of double caught it in traffic, and he showed the elite hands that he has. And Tyler, we appreciate Tyler a whole lot in this building, and that's why, you see him rewarded with the contract extension that we felt like he was more than deserving of.
Looked like Goff threw that one angry. That was a dodgeball throw on the touchdown.
Oh yeah. No, he fit it in there tight. You can't let those zoning defenders collapse on him, man. He stuck that right on his stomach, and it was a great catch by Tyler.
What's it like as a head coach to have one, behind you in terms of everything in a new season is a bit unknown? You think you know who you are and what you have and what might be ahead, but is that perspective in a little bit sharper focus, having been to Carolina and back now?
I think it's just great to like you said, have gotten the season off on the right foot like we want, and the positive thing is to be able to have all those things occur with so many things that we can continue to correct. It's much easier to correct, and people are more receptive to that in spite of, when you end up winning, as opposed to, feeling like, okay, let's naturally human inclination, you're a little more sensitive when you don't get the you don't accomplish the goal you want. But our players have always been great about, responding to, we talk about coaching isn't condemning, it's correcting. And we want to do it in a positive and an authentic way. And, yesterday provided, even though we did get the win, there's a lot of teaching moments and teaching opportunities, not exclusive to just players, but for us as coaches as well. You talk about using timeouts the right way. You talk about making some decisions in the game, some of the play calls that we have really in all 3 phases. And that's what you love so much about it, is because, you never let the complacency set in, and you're always getting a chance to learn.
I think that's true of the quarterback position as much as any other. I mean, when Jared goes through an entire offseason wearing a red jersey, knowing he's not going to be hit, someone's not going to slap the ball out of his hands, in terms of what he has to contend with on game day versus what he's been practicing these last 6 months.
Yeah, there's no way of truly emulating a live rush where you can get tackled. In the back of your mind, in practice settings, you always know, those guys are off limits. So I think there's a definite difference to that. I think those are one of the things that really separates the good ones from the great ones, the ability to keep your eyes down the field, not watch the rush, be able to move and manipulate the pocket based on how that rush disperses and make those throws. I thought one of his best throws of the day was the 3rd down and 2 to Cooper Kupp, where he's got a rusher. Havenstein does a great job fighting through the down, and he's basically got traffic on his feet where he can't get through, and it's all shoulder turn out to the right flat, and Kupp made a little option route. But that's where you see the special arm talent, the ability to throw without necessarily needing to get your feet through.
That's why Cooper's middle name is Third Down And.
No doubt.
There you go.
I like it.
Good to have him back
Yes,
in those
sir.
situations, isn't it, DeMarco?
Absolutely. He just makes such a big difference out there. You know, it seems like you're playing with 12 sometimes when he's out there.
Yeah, it's great to have him back. Great football player, a great dad, and great guy. I mean, what more can you say? You love Cooper Kupp, and we're sure glad to have him back healthy and ready to roll.
There are still tickets available for this Sunday's home opener against the Saints, and you can secure your seats by visiting therams.com/NO. Therams.com/NO, the NFC Championship rematch at the Coliseum Sunday with kickoff at 1:25. Coming up next, Lakers talk with Alan Sliwa. For DeMarco Farr, I'm JB Long. Sean, great to see you. Congratulations on the opening win. Looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, guys. Always good to be here.
And thank you for being with us tonight on ESPN LA 710.